Marie, right,
Great.
on to
Thank
you.
you. Great. Thank you, Taylor. I appreciate that very much. And thank you for having me. We're really, the UC Marin Master Gardeners do all sorts of educational events and things throughout the county. We're here to help with pest management, home horticulture, and sustainable practices. We pass along information about that and knowledge to Marin residents. So let me go ahead and just leap in here. I'm going to disappear and then I will get my screen shared here. Let's see here. I think that's everything. Okay. It looks something about having, I'm getting a message. Anyway. Okay.
There we go. I see it.
Can you see it? Okay, great. So let's go ahead. Can you see this now?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, great. So this is, I'm going to fly by this and everybody will have an opportunity at the end, but if you're interested, we do, the Marin Master Gardeners do have a quarterly newsletter. I happen to be the co-editor of that. And it's not something where we're going to pound you over the head with emails. It's just seasonal advice, tips on, bugs and diseases and plants and all sorts of different ideas. So you'll have an opportunity again at the end to sign up for that if you're interested. So, okay, today we're going to talk about rethinking the lawn. And there's just, again, what the Master Gardeners do. So we can pass over that, already gone over that. Here's what we'll cover today. Why replace your lawn? Then we'll talk about 3 methods to remove a lawn. And then we'll talk about what to do and how to think about where your lawn was once it's gone. So let's start with why replace your lawn. And I bet you all know the first one, and that is to save water. So here are a few facts. Lawns use more land and more water than any single ag crop in the United States. So it's a gargantuan water use. A third of Marin's water is used for gardens, mostly lawns. I would imagine it's probably similar in the city. Drought, and no surprise, is becoming more frequent and more intense due to climate change. In fact, from 2011 to 2015, it was the driest since record keeping began in 1895. And most of the West right now is in a severe drought. In some places, it's the worst in 1200 years. So nothing to take lightly. And this is sort of an interesting little factoid. In California, 60% of the state's water needs are met by groundwater during these drought years. And usually that rate is about 40%. So it's a 50% increase. We're taking more water out of, underground. And because of that, in some parts of California, the land is actually sinking. It has sunk by a foot or more, and it continues to sink. So we're actually changing the surface, sort of the earth, which is sort of a creepy thought. But anyway, so here's the question. Can your plant choices really make a difference? And the answer is yes. So let's look at some real basic math here. So on this lawn over here, let's say it has 7 spray heads. And 7 spray heads popping up for about 10 minutes, a few times a week. Each of those spray heads, when they pop up, are measured in gallons per minute. And 7 spray heads running for 10 minutes will use 70 gallons of water. And that's usually coming on a couple of times a week, a few times a week. Honestly, most people overwater a little bit. So 70 gallons of water every time, right? Now, let's say that you replace that lawn with 50 plants and you put it on a drip system, right? Drip systems are measured in gallons per hour. And so if you had 51 gallon per hour drip emitters running for 10 minutes, so the same amount of time that those spray heads were going, you'd only use 8.5 gallons of water. So you can see what a huge difference that is. And look at how beautiful and colorful it is too, I'll just add. But anyway, and then of course, there are no and low water gardens as well, which we'll touch on just a tiny bit. And you may have seen in the news that MMWD, the Marin Municipal Water District, is proposing a ban on decorative grass at commercial and municipal properties because saving water is so important. And they estimate that there's about 73 acres of non-functional turf. Again, this is in Marin County, but it's indicative of throughout the Bay Area, of course. And, this photo over here on the right, this is what we don't want, of course. We don't want to be watering. We want to avoid watering lawns if we can, of course, anything that needs that much water. But also, we don't want it to seep away on sidewalks and all sorts of things because it's just wasteful. So when you save water, you also save energy. And the truth is that moving water in California uses 20% of our electricity. Think about that. 1 out of 5 kilowatts goes to moving water, pumping it often from Northern California to Southern California, over hill and dale, so to speak. That's a big number. And here's how that plays out. If you save water, you save energy. When you save energy, that's going to cut down on greenhouse gases. And when you cut down on greenhouse gases, then you help to mitigate climate change. And that in turn reduces the frequency and intensity of drought. So it's this beautiful step-by-step process that starts with saving water. So it's a good thing. And of course, there are also all sorts of lawn fertilizers, pesticides, and herbicides, and those all take a significant energy to produce. So there you go. And of course, lawns also take human energy. And, there is this mistaken notion by some people that lawns are low maintenance. And I cannot stress enough that lawns are high maintenance plants. I don't have any plants in my garden, and I love to garden. I have no plants in my garden that I have to mow, clip, edge, aerate, feed, seed, weed, and water. I mean, that is a lot of maintenance for one type of plant. And of course, if you save water and you save energy, then you're going to have lower water and energy bills. So you save money. And of course, who doesn't love that, right? You also will reduce pollution. Now we are, I would like to think that all of us in the Bay Area are a little bit more advanced and know that we don't want to pour lots of pesticides and herbicides and all sorts of things on plants, but you would be amazed how much is used. Lawn care chemicals are millions and millions of gallons of gasoline is used for lawn care, and millions of pounds of fertilizers and pesticides, and of course lots of noisy machinery is used. And here's how that plays out. Some lawn chemicals will run off into lakes and streams and creeks, and in our case also the bay. It can kill or harm insects and fish. And this disrupts the food chain, which is a very serious thing. And that can ultimately degrade our drinking water. So this is not something we want in our environment. So I'm going to show a very short video about this. This is just 2 minutes, but it gives you a good summary of what happens with chemicals like this going into our water.
Nutrient pollution is a widespread national problem and is well documented in places like the Chesapeake Bay, the Mississippi River Basin, and Puget Sound. Nutrients like nitrogen and phosphorus are a natural part of the ecosystem. They support the growth of aquatic plants. But human activities cause an excess of nitrogen and phosphorus in the environment. Surface and groundwater becomes polluted, creating a serious problem known as nutrient pollution. Nutrient pollution can affect you and your family's health as it threatens our drinking water supplies and places where we like to swim and fish. Excess nutrients can also cause an explosion of algae growth called algal blooms. These can be foamy, scummy, or a thick mat of slime on the surface of the water or along the beach. Some algal blooms are harmful because they produce toxins that can make people sick. These blooms also hurt tourism, reduce property values, and drive up water treatment costs. The nutrients move downstream, killing fish and creating large dead zones where no aquatic life can survive. It's one of the most serious water pollution issues facing our nation. Nutrient pollution comes from farms, lawn fertilizer, pet waste, city streets, faulty septic systems, and sewage treatment plants. Limiting nutrient pollution from excess nitrogen and phosphorus will protect people's health, support the economy, and keep America's waters safe for swimming and fishing. Awareness is the first step in preventing and reducing nutrient pollution. Learn what you can do to make a difference at
Okay, so that gives you a little summary on why it is so imperative that we try and keep all of our waterways clean and free of all of these chemicals. So now I just want to, I'm going to read a couple of EPA findings, and these are direct quotes about common lawn fertilizers, herbicides, and insecticides. Some lawn chemicals threaten native plants by harming beneficial insects that safely control weeds and unwanted insects. Lawn chemicals account for the majority of wildlife poisonings reported to the EPA. Several types of cancer, immunoresponse deficiencies, neurological diseases, and birth defects have been associated with exposure to lawn chemicals. And finally, the rates of lymphoma in pets of pesticide users are significantly higher than occurrences in the pets of non-chemical users. So that gives you a sense of what I was just talking about in terms of chemicals. So another benefit, of course, of replacing your lawn is to make better use of the space. Here's a good side-by-side. There's a reason why lawns are called green deserts. It's because they just don't support much of any life. They're just, they're so non-native, it's not even funny, let's put it that way. And look at this other side, it's so filled with life. Question is, where would you rather be, a bee or a hummingbird or a robin, or for that matter, a human, right? I mean, it's just the photo with the lovely perennial garden here is just teeming with life, whereas the other one just feels a little bit drab. And of course, one of the great things about replacing your lawn is to create a sense of place. This photo is really defines much of the California landscape in summer, right? We're the Golden State. We have these gorgeous rolling golden hills dotted with these, in this case, these beautiful oaks and other beautiful plants. It's a lovely look that has nothing to do with this, right? This is a look that we've borrowed from areas that have much, much more rainfall than we ever will. And so it just is very un-California. Replacing your lawn is a key step in creating a sustainable, earth-friendly garden. So how do you get started? Let's look at 3 ways to remove a lawn. First, we're going to talk about how to dig one out, how to solarize one, and then how to smother a lawn. So how to dig a lawn out. The first thing that you'd need for this project is a sod cutter. And this can be some pretty hard work. It can be a little expensive to rent the machine. And then of course, once you slice that turf off, it's dumped into a landfill. And that can take a pretty long time to compost, a very long time to compost. But more importantly, it disturbs the top soil. And that soil is so teeming with life that, when you upset that, you're just interrupting all that life underground. And it can also leave weeds, seeds, and roots underground because you're just slicing off that top layer. And just again, another nod to the soil. It is just so, it is so teeming with life that when you rototill or you slice off the top or whatever, it's like having a hurricane and a tornado and an earthquake for these creatures all at once. And there are millions, some that we can't see, of course, with our naked eye. We need very powerful microscopes, but they are so important. So that's a good reminder. And the next way that you can snuff out a lawn is to solarize. And this is a way where you mow the grass, you leave the clippings, you wet it down a little bit, and then you cover it with clear plastic and edge it with bricks or other stone, or in this case, you see this photo, they sort of backfilled with soil, which is probably a better way to go than bricks, because you really need to, there can't be one little pocket of air or you're going to kind of, sabotage yourself. Needs to be left on for a minimum of 2 months, and it can work. It will kill the sod and it will kill the weeds underneath. Unfortunately, it will kill all the life under there too, that we were just talking about. But unfortunately, it doesn't build soil. When you're done solarizing an area, there's a good chance you'll have to maybe take soil out and maybe backfill with something else that's a little healthier, right? Because you've just knocked off anything under there that was living. So, and it also can be pretty unsightly in the process. So here's the recommended way to replace a lawn. Sheet mulching. It's also called sheet composting or the lasagna method, which you can see this bottom left photo kind of looks like a piece of environmental lasagna there. This is easy. It can be free or very inexpensive. It recycles existing materials and most importantly provides very healthy soil right on the spot. And you can actually berm up and plant into it instantly. So it's really great. And the recipe for this is some organic material, some cardboard, and some mulch. And now we're going to watch a little about 7-minute video about how to actually sheet mulch your lawn. So here we go. No, didn't take it. Here we go. Come on. There we go.
Hi, my name is Kat. I'm a landscape architect, and today I'm going to show you how to rethink your lawn the Bay-friendly way. Now, here's what a conventional lawn looks like. Ornamental and underused, but now lots of folks are transforming those lawns into Bay-friendly gardens. These diverse and beautiful gardens will help you use less water, are easier to maintain, require less chemical fertilizers and pesticides, save energy, and produce fewer greenhouse gases. In addition, they also build healthy soil and plants. Replacing your lawn is a great opportunity to create a bay-friendly garden. You can create a habitat for bees and butterflies, start your own vegetable garden or orchard, create an urban retreat, or a perfect space for you, your children, and your pets. The possibilities are endless, and once you develop a plan, the rest is pretty easy. Now I'm going to show you how to sheet mulch. Sheet mulching is a cheap and easy way to replace your lawn. If you don't want to do your entire lawn, you can start with just mulching a part of your yard a little bit at a time. It doesn't require the use of heavy equipment or pesticides. And once you have the materials, sheet mulching can be completed in a day, depending on the size of the area you are covering. So let me explain how sheet mulching works. Sheet mulching is a technique of laying cardboard or newspaper over an existing lawn and then topping it off with wood mulch. The layers break down naturally to feed the soil with microbes, creating a vibrant ecosystem, which is going to give you healthier soil and plants. But sheet mulching is also an ideal way to suppress weeds, build your soil health, and replace lawns. The best time to sheet mulch is in the fall to take advantage of the rains, but it can be done any time of the year. There are many different ways to sheet mulch, but I'm going to show you a simple way recommended by the Bay-Friendly program. First, you're going to prepare the site. If you have tall weeds, you are going to want to knock them down or mow existing vegetation so that it lies flat. Then remove only woody or bulky plant materials. If you plan to retrofit your sprinkler heads for drip irrigation, be sure to flag the sprinkler heads now so that you can find them again when you're done. I'll show you all about sprinkler head retrofitting in part 2. Now, some plants are going to need to be removed before sheet mulching, such as invasive plants that spread by rhizomes, bulbs, or that resprout from extensive root systems. Some examples include blackberries, oxalis, horsetails, kikuyu, and Bermuda grass. When removing these invasive plants from around plants that you will be keeping, be careful that you don't damage the roots of the plants that you are keeping. Next, We're going to soak the area with water to start the natural process of decomposition. To avoid runoff and keep mulch from spilling over onto sidewalks or driveways, you can use a flat edge shovel to cut the lawn away 8 to 12 inches from the edge of the concrete. The soil should be at least 3 inches below the grade. In other words, 3 inches below the top of the concrete. Your excess soil and sod can be mounded away from the edges and sheet mulched in place. If you're sheet mulching a lawn, just flip the edges over so the roots in the soil are face up. If you encounter the plastic netting that came with your sod, don't worry about it. Throw away the pieces that you see. Your leftover soil and any extra plant material or prunings can be used to create mounds for plants that like well-drained soils. Many native plants thrive on these mounds. Mounds also create more visual interest in the garden by adding height and depth. All right, once the area is prepped, then you're ready to install 5-gallon or larger plants. Next, you'll add a weed barrier. It is essential that this barrier be permeable to water and air. Recycled cardboard boxes work great. You can get big sheets of cardboard from appliance stores or bike shops. You can also buy recycled cardboard rolls or use multiple layers of newspaper or burlap. Be sure you don't use plastic or weed cloth, which won't biodegrade. Remember, this is all about building your soil naturally. When you're placing your cardboard pieces down, be sure to overlap the pieces by 6 to 8 inches so the sun won't get through them. You want to starve your weeds of light. As you're working, you can rip and fold the cardboard to accommodate the space around your plants. Now completely cover the ground except where there are established plants that you don't want to cover. Cover all green lawn to keep the sunlight from hitting it. Remember, any lawn showing at the end of the project will come right back. Next, we're going to wet down the cardboard to keep it in place to make it easier to shape around obstacles. When you're done covering the existing lawn with cardboard, it's time to add a layer of compost and mulch on top. Spread your compost directly over the cardboard and then cover it with bulky materials like wood chips to optimize weed control. Adding compost will help build soil. However, if your main goal is weed suppression, you can just add the mulch and skip the compost. In total, the compost mulch layer should be about 2 to 5 inches deep. The top layer of mulch mimics the newly fallen organic matter of a forest. Good materials for this layer include chip plant debris, tree prunings, leaves, or even straw. You are going to need a lot of mulch. Typically, a smallish front yard can take 18 cubic yards of mulch. To find local sources for mulch, please see the resources accompanying this presentation. Now that you've laid down the cardboard and covered it with mulch, you're going to punch holes in the cardboard and place your plants in the soil under the sheet mulch. In cooler climates, smaller plants like 4-inch pots can be planted right into the mulch compost layer on top of the cardboard without digging a hole. Don't worry, the roots will break through the cardboard. You will want to add compost just around the root ball if you didn't already add compost on top of the cardboard. If you did, you're good to go. Remember, your new plants will require water and attention when they're young, even if they're drought tolerant. Just a couple other things to keep in mind. Don't pile materials up against tree trunks or stems of plants. This will help them stay healthy and disease-free. Especially during the dry season, small seedlings may need protection from snails and slugs that like to hide under the mulch. You can protect young trees from rodents with physical guards like metal bands that wrap around the base. So, congratulations! Your lawn has now been sheet mulched, and you've laid the foundation for a beautiful bay-friendly garden that you will enjoy for years to come.
Okay, so that I think that she does an excellent job of showing the process of sheet mulching or sheet composting, as it's also called. One thing I will mention is that it's pretty easy to, I mean, you can get big pieces of cardboard, collect them and so forth, but you can also just get rolls of cardboard. You can buy these. Sometimes it's recycled cardboard and just roll it out. And I've done it both ways, and boy, it feels pretty good to just roll it right out and have it cover everything up. So I thought I would just mention that. So also our water companies do have, in Marin County, we have cash and material incentives. I'll just touch on this very briefly because I know not everyone is from Marin County here, but you know, look at the website of your water company and see what the cash incentives are or materials incentives that your water company is offering. So you've smothered your lawn. Question is, now what? The good news is it doesn't have to look like this, right? You don't have to put little gnomes and little rocks. You know, you can put some living things in there. It could quickly go from this to this. Now, this is my garden actually in the back. When I first moved in, gosh, a number of years ago now. And I had this kind of, what you don't see here is this, it was a big sweeping lawn that went all the way around here on the left. I had young kids then, and I wanted to make some changes. So this is how the garden, this particular portion ended up, right? So much more colorful and interesting and inviting to wildlife, the wildlife that we want in our gardens, the you know, flying, feathery, wonderful wildlife that keeps all of our gardens alive. And, you know, I didn't sheet mulch the whole thing, but part of it. And it really was an effective process. And here's a side-by-side before and after of a house that dialed it up, right? They snuffed out their lawn and they put in some perennials. I guess they were so inspired, they also decided to paint, but any rate, you can just see that it just creates a more inviting landscape. So I cannot stress these next two slides enough. Before you decide what to put where your lawn was, start by defining your objectives. How do you want to use that space? You know, we all do this. We have, you know, our landscapes are laid out or whatever, and we have a lawn area and we think, well, if it was a lawn area, it's got to be a lawn area again. But this is an opportunity to stand back and say, how do I need to use this space? Or how do I want to use this space? Right? Here are some questions to ask yourself, right, about your current lawn, or lawn space, I should say. Do I need to walk on it? Do I want to sit there? Will my kids play there? Do I need a new entry or a path? Do I want color, or do I just want another expanse of green? Maybe you need storage. Maybe there's a storage shed in your future. Do you need to block or enhance a view? What else? What will make your landscape really fit your needs? I cannot stress that enough. And the second important thing is to take a very quick site analysis, which is just a fancy way of saying, what are you starting with, right? How much sun do you have? What's your microclimate like? Is it windy? Is it super hot? What's your soil? It's the quality of your soil. How much water are you willing to expend there? How much time and maintenance are you willing to expend? What are your greater surroundings? Sometimes it's really cool when we can just borrow from the greater environment, right? Bring some of that inside your garden. Are there views that you want, that you have? You know, what else, right? So what you're starting with and what that space needs to do for you. I cannot stress that enough. It's really important to go through that thought process. So let's start with if you want to walk on it. And here is, I want to make an important message. Fake grass is not the answer. And there are two reasons for that. And the first is that fake grass is unhealthy for the environment. And let's step through the reasons why. It removes space for living plants. We have a big issue right now in our environment with, you know, well, we all know the song Pave Paradise, right? Put up a parking lot, right? Well, it turns out that's kind of, you know, we have to accommodate all of us who live here. But whenever we take over the natural environment, of course, we have reduced our biodiversity and our opportunity for living creatures to exist. So that's one of the things that fake lawn does. It just exacerbates that. It provides zero wildlife habitat value. It kills the life in the soil and leaves pieces of plastic for many years. And I'm talking, you know, decades or longer. It may be impervious. and preventing leaves and other debris from infiltrating into soil and therefore reducing groundwater recharge. So that's an important factor. It does not sequester carbon, right? We're always looking for ways, and especially these days, right, to look for ways to sequester carbon in plants and mostly in soil. Soil sequesters more carbon than all the carbon in the atmosphere and in plants combined. It is so powerful. It can be expensive and very energy intensive to produce. It requires a leaf blower, which is, you know, comes with a lot of other negative factors. It is not weed free. There's nothing less attractive than looking at a fake lawn with weeds coming out of it. It's just pretty hideous. And of course, when it's all said and done, it's going to end up in a landfill where it is not biodegradable. So this is something hopefully you will not consider. Turns out fake lawns can also be unhealthy for humans. They can harbor harmful bacteria from pet waste and other pollutants. They get incredibly hot, causing injuries. I saw this firsthand when my kids were playing soccer on artificial turf. There's off-gassing that occurs that can add to air pollution, and this can create respiratory problems for some people and pets. Often they're made out of recycled rubber tires, and that always sounds like a good thing because, you know, we always love recycling things, but there can be heavy metals in there, and they have found some chemicals linked to cancer. And the grass blades and backing contain these little toxic chemicals, or something called forever chemicals. And I'm not a chemist, so I can't speak with any deep level of authority here, but they're called PFAS, forever chemicals. And here's how that plays out. Children will breathe in these chemicals from the off-gassing, and they'll touch or swallow those little tiny rubber pellets that they put in fake turf to make it look like soil. And those pellets go into shoes and to clothing. And then they travel home in cars and they end up in our homes. And those accumulate in the body, unfortunately. And sadly, they do not break down. So this is a very serious consideration. It's also the reason why the Children's Environmental Health Center at the Icahn School of Medicine at Mount Sinai has urged a moratorium on the installation of new fields with artificial turf. So, so please reconsider artificial turf if it's been in your mind. And I encourage you to opt for something real instead. So first of all, a lawn, of course, doesn't have to be manicured to be attractive. We're just going to look at some slides that just kind of provide some ideas and some plant ideas. Now, I want to mention that, you know, like every minute, every day, every minute, there are new plants, new lawn alternatives coming onto the market, especially lawn alternatives that kind of look like grass or that just stay really low. But again, getting back to that, to the idea of what do you need and what do you want and what are you starting with? Maybe something low and green and walkable isn't what you need at all. But we're going to start with ideas that are walkable, plants that are walkable. So let's jump in. First one we'll look at is Carex texensis, also called Caitlin sedge. By the way, I am going to be using botanical names. And one of the reasons is I just want to give you a little word to the wise here. If you order plants in a nursery or wherever you buy plants, please be sure to use the botanical name. And the reason for that is because every plant has one botanical name, one scientific name, but many plants have many common names. Believe me, I know some horror stories of people who have ordered things like tulip trees, and they end up with something that isn't even close to what they thought it was going to be. So, please use the botanical name when you can, when you order, I should say. So Carex texensis is a low-growing grass that grows in sun or shade. It's going to stay a little bit greener with a little bit of shade, a little bit slow to fill in, but it only grows 4 to 6 inches tall and uses some water, but probably could get away with mowing even once a year. This is a grass that's native to the Midwest and the East Coast, where they do get more water, more rain than we do. But it's definitely something that we can use out here. Diamondia margaretiae, this is called silver carpet, and you can see how silver it does look. This forms an incredibly dense gray mat. It tolerates drought, cold, salt spray, poor soil. It is very, very durable and very deep rooted. In the summer, it has pretty little yellow flowers, which you can see up here. It works really well between stepping stones as well as a lawn replacement. This one is native to South Africa, which is another area that shares our same type of Mediterranean climate, parts of it. Zoysia dianza is something for, if you're looking for something that really looks like conventional turf, this could be a good contender. It uses very low water. It tolerates heat, shade, saline soil, very, very durable. They have used it on sports fields and golf courses. It does go dormant in the fall, right? It wants heat. And so in the fall and winter, it's going to look a little browned out, right? But then it'll come back to this green life when temperatures go up. So that's one to consider. By the way, I forgot to mention, all of these, nobody has to take any notes or anything like that. I have a leave behind that we'll send out that has all of the plants and all of the information in this presentation, including the video and so forth. It'll all be, you can watch it afterwards and learn much more about these plants. Carex flocka, I think, is a really pretty little low-growing sedge. When you see the word carex, you know that that's a sedge. It has this great blue-green color, works in full or part sun. A lot of the carex like a little bit of afternoon shade, especially where it's hot. Takes a little water. It'll stay evergreen if you're in an area that doesn't get frost. It'll spread out a little bit, but it's not invasive. Stays low, usually under a foot. So you can mow this, once a quarter, something like this, to keep it nice and neat. It's a slow but steady grower. And if you give it just a little bit of water, and it has moderate drought resistance once it's established, especially if it gets a little bit of part sun, not real blasting sun. And here's another one, Festuca rubra, the red fescue. This one works in more shadier settings, and it can look very lush. This is a good one for San Francisco. Grows about 1 to 2 feet long. You can let it get this nice billowy look like in this photo, or you could just mow it like a lawn if you prefer something more clipped. It prefers cool summers. It needs shade in hot areas. This is definitely one for cooler settings. Takes a little water and a little bit more again if it gets hot. So again, a good contender for the city. This is one of my favorites, Trifolium repens, good old white clover, the plant that we all used to try and take out of our lawns, right? Turns out it's an outstanding lawn alternative. It stays low, very low, 4 to 6 inches tall typically. You can let it flower, which will attract bees, which could be good for your surrounding plants or fruit trees or so forth. Or you can just mow it down, right? Just mow it like a lawn. It adds nitrogen to the soil, which is a great benefit. It's drought tolerant. It stays green year round. It'll grow in pretty much any type of soil. And as an added bonus for those who have pets, it will not leave any pet urine stains. So people really love this as a lawn alternative. And the thing that I love is how easy it is to plant. Literally, prepare the area, rake it up a little bit and so forth and get it all weed free as best you can. And then you can plant by seed. So I think it's a beautiful alternative. And similarly, there's a product called Carapia, Lipionata flora. This is developed for drought, but it also tolerates flooding, which is sort of an amazing thing. It's very fast growing. You can literally plant little plugs every like 2 or 3 feet, something like that, and it will fill in. It's a sterile evergreen, meaning it's not going to be a problem. It's not going to spread into your beds or so forth. It attracts butterflies and bees. It's very deep rooted, which means that it helps control erosion if you have a slope. They're using it on highway shoulders, rooftops, public utility areas. I'll tell you, there isn't anything tougher than a rooftop, right? They talk about exposed, and these highway shoulders, you can imagine what some of those areas are like. So it's really a tough lawn alternative. Here are some photos from a friend of mine who in San Anselmo, so it does get hot in her area. She replaced her lawn with this carapia, and you can see, I think you can sort of see on this right hand side, she rolled out sod, carapia sod, but it really isn't necessary. You can just put plugs in and it will fill. And you can see over here on the left how it kind of sends out these, grows like by these runners, and they sort of root. And what you could do is just take a trimmer and just trim along that edge. So that is becoming a popular lawn alternative. There's also the University of California has what they call a verde buffalo grass, Buccolodactyloides, which is a cultivar. They've bred this at UC Davis and UC Riverside. It loves heat. Here again, you can see these photos throughout the year. In spring, it starts, greening up. Summer, it's in love with the hot sun. And then when temperatures fall and winter, it's going to brown out a little bit. But it will also use 75% less water than a conventional lawn. So that's definitely a lovely trade-off. So anyway, that's one that's definitely a great walkable alternative. And I'll just mention that there are some excellent California native seed and sod blends available through a host of places. Delta Bluegrass sells carapia, and there's all of these different outfits sell seed blends. And so if you just go on their sites, you can see what they have and see if there's something that would fit for your situation. Okay, so maybe you want a grassy look, but you don't need to walk on it. Here are some ideas for that. Carex panza, here again is another carex, right? You're going to hear that word a few times. This is the dune sedge. Needs a little water to get established, but then it doesn't require much. This is a California native plant, which is growing native plants has a host of benefits. I won't get into that. I do a whole other different presentation on that, but I will touch on it just a tiny bit in a minute. But there's a lot of benefits, mostly because they're just naturally adapted to our area. But this one only grows about 6 to 12 inches tall, and it spreads about 2 feet by rhizomes, so little underground guys that just sort of spread out. It kind of provides that sort of meadow look for both coastal or drier microclimates. This one will take a little bit of foot traffic, but as you can see, it's not going to be super comfortable to, you're going to have to watch where you're stepping. It's going to be lumpy, let's put it that way. And its cousin, Carex progressilis, or the field sedge. This is good for erosion control or for the meadow look, or again, for green roofs or driveways. Very tough. It tolerates drought, poor soil, salt spray, heat, cold, and even a little foot traffic. This one will also grow about 1 foot tall, has that sort of, messed up hair look, the tousled look, but it grows pretty densely. And excuse me, one of the benefits when something grows really dense like that is that it will snuff out weeds. And that is great, right? Because it lowers maintenance. Like the prior grass, it can be mowed or string trimmed. This also is a California native. And this one is going to turn brown inland where it's hot in summer if you don't give it any water. This one would actually probably like the city environment as well. So it's a tough grass. And then finally, one little larger Carex tumulicola, the foothill sedge, another native. This is fast growing. It's a little bit of a larger scale grass, 2 feet tall and wide. It works in wet or dry soil. And one of its big selling points is it works in sun or part shade. And that can be really helpful if you're covering expanse that goes in and out of sun and shade. If you want to have a uniform look, it's nice to use something that will provide that and not look, bright in sun, but icky in shade or vice versa. So this is a good one for that. It is drought tolerant once established. It sends up really beautiful. You can see in this photo a little bit here, lovely little tan to brown flowers in spring. They're really very, very pretty. And it's very easy and very reliable. And I saw this one day on a walk. I was walking and I saw where somebody took Carrick's tumulacola, the grass I was just showing you, and they edged their lawn. They just shrunk their lawn a little bit. And I love this little poodle effect that it has for the edging. I just think it looks great. But what they've done there also is they've saved water. They don't have to water that much. And once it's established, not much at all. So they've just saved some water. So that's a good thing. And here's another grass, Calamagrostis foliosa, the Mendocino reed grass, another native. It's forms a beautiful dense mound. It has these great looking gray-green tones, and it has little purple stripes when the weather cools. And I just love that. This photo on the right over the rock is in my garden, and I just love it when it's blooming like that. I just think that looks so pretty, those tawny tones. And this takes little or no summer water once it's established. And finally, a larger scale grass is the deer grass. It kind of goes through a little bit of an awkward teenage phase where whoosh, that just sticks straight up, but then it fans out and it forms this beautiful sort of arc. Lovely in a little bit of a breeze or so forth, or the sun shining through it. It really looks pretty. Forms 2 to 3 foot clumps again. And once this is established, you don't have to hardly water it at all, maybe 1 or 2 times, throw some water on it. Very easy and dependable. And this little bluegrass you've probably seen around town. This is the blue fescue, Festuca glauca. It grows under 1 foot tall. It likes sun on the coast, but shade inland. So that is a clue that tells us that it likes it a little cooler. So this would probably be a nice alternative for the city. It's drought tolerant once it's mature. It does not like wet soil, and that's usually not a problem for us, right? It can be a little short-lived. So this one, after maybe 5 years or so, might start losing some of that nice blue-green color. So that's a consideration for this one. Okay, so maybe you want to eat your old lawn. Maybe you want to eat from where your lawn was. This is a great way to sheet compost a lawn area. You can see where somebody just fenced in a portion of their lawn here, putting those beds, just building those little raised beds over the lawn. You don't have to have cardboard under there. I would recommend gopher wire, but that's going to naturally snuff out the lawn under there, no problem. You can see how these folks it looks like they're trying to decide, oh, am I going to do a hardscape in between the beds, or am I going to leave some of that lawn? And my suggestion there would be to get rid of that lawn, not even necessarily because of all the reasons we've talked about there, but because lawns as paths just end up looking really nasty. If they're going to take a beating, they're going to show it. And so in a situation like this, it's really nice to have a designated hardscape path of some sort, preferably that lets a little water soak through, but stepping stones or something. But this works too. I think it just looks like gravel with some pavers popped in there. And here you can see where somebody could have sheet mulched a lawn and bam, planted it right up with edibles. It depends on how wild of a look you want, right? Again, it goes back to what do you need and what are you starting with? And so if it's evergreen you're after, there's so many options. Trailing germander, the teucriums are lovely, 1 to 2 feet tall and wide. They have a lovely fragrance in their leaves if you rub them. Beautiful summer flowers, super easy and drought tolerant once mature. Here's a native, low growing, very wide spreading, only grows 18 inches to 2 feet tall, but spreads 10 to 12 feet wide. And it snuffs out things in its way, right? It's a California native plant. I'll tell you up front, it's not the most exciting plant. What you see right there is pretty much what you're going to get. It is one of the best choices for attracting all the little good guys, all the good little beneficial insects that we all need and want in our gardens. So just so you're aware. The manzanitas, there are just so many incredible manzanitas. We are, for inland, there's emerald carpet, which only gets 1 foot tall, but 8 feet wide, spreads out beautifully. For cooler areas like San Francisco, you could do the Pacific Mist. It gets about 2 feet tall, 5 feet wide. And there's so many other options. If you love manzanitas and you love hummingbirds, then I definitely encourage you to look into manzanita as an option. They all have these beautiful little urns for flowers. And it is one of the most important plants for our bees. It's the first plant that they look to when they come out, in the winter or late winter and start foraging. And if we don't have some manzanitas for us, sometimes, we don't want them to go hungry. Let's put it that way. Love the manzanitas. And the beach strawberry is another beautiful option. This one is a nice alternative for the city. It grows 1 foot tall and 3 feet wide. It can grow very densely by runners, right? So you've seen, regular strawberries, how they grow with those runners. This one can create kind of like a carpet appearance, really pretty. It tolerates sand and it will tolerate hot inland areas if it has some afternoon shade and a little water. And of course, the birds love those little strawberries. They're going to beat you to those, but maybe you can get a few for yourself. And if you just want to, what if you want to make a big splash of color where your lawn was? The sky is definitely the limit. You can go for hot colors or cool colors. I mean, those are so much more interesting than lawn, right? You could put in succulents, which are, as you know, come in every shape, size, color, everything. And it's so great that they have so proliferated our landscapes. This is a neighbor of mine. I was on another walk and I saw this little front yard that somebody had redone. And this is a good example of where, this could be a lawn where somebody would have to pull out the lawnmower and do all that and water and do all that stuff. But why not just put in this sweet little succulent garden, very low maintenance, very low water, right? And it's lovely. It's so inviting. So that's just another idea. There are lots of herbaceous ground covers, right? Like creeping thyme or verbena, lantana, coreopsis. These are 3 plants actually that will really prefer to have some heat. So I don't know that they're quite as good for most areas of San Francisco, but they're awfully colorful. And then here again, a little nod for California natives. There's so many good things to say about them. Here's a smattering of some of our most popular ones, and many are just easy to grow. This is the manzanita that we were talking about a minute ago. The California oaks are probably the most valuable and most wildlife friendly plant you can have. If you have an oak in your garden, kiss the ground it's growing on. They're just so valuable environmentally. This is our beautiful ribes, our California native currants that bloom in late winter and early spring. They're just knockouts. And we know about some of our lovely maples. Anyway, they're just so beautiful. They're just really gorgeous. So that's that. And California natives are a wonderful way to create habitat for birds and butterflies and bees and all the wildlife that we want to invite into our neighborhoods. You might need to put in a permeable path, right? So what we want to do with paths, let's say, just think if this had been a lawn and we just planted either side and we put this sweet little path in the middle. The nice thing about this particular path, you see, is that water can infiltrate, right? And we're always trying to recharge the ground, the water underneath our feet. And so the idea is we want to slow it, sink it, and spread it, right? That's a good little way to remember that. And there's a new entry. You could definitely see this as being just a kind of a flat, old, boring green lawn beforehand. And look at how inviting it is now. Now, you're not going to pick up those boulders at the local nursery and bring them home. But, this can be done. And those boulders can be purchased and delivered. This is going to take some work to make this kind of a change, but then it's set, right? Then it's set. And here again, this is probably 3 or 4 species of plants here. And it just has more life. It just looks more inviting than if this was just a big lawn, leading up to the house. Or maybe you need a place to sit down. Maybe you need to create a little patio instead of a walkable living alternative. There are patios to fit any shape or budget, from gravel, right, to decomposed granite, like down here. Of course, this is, something that takes a little bit more work if it's going to be like a flagstone patio that's all in place and so forth. Gravel is a very inexpensive and also earth-friendly alternative, right? Because water can soak through, which is again a great benefit. It's great to keep a little corner of your replaced lawn, something with a little bit of water, right? A little fountain or something like that. You'll be amazed if you haven't had a little fountain or water at your place in the past. If you just add a little something, the birds will find it. I guarantee it. It's really fun to watch. And here's a big project, less lawn, more pond. This is definitely not a weekend project, but if you had room and you had the determination to come up with a big pond like this, it's kind of a cool project, but not for the faint of heart. I mean, this one is going to take some work. Or maybe you need a fun play area for the kids. You could totally see this as being a replacement for what was a green lawn. And I know when my kids were young, they spent a lot of time on their little things wheeling around on the patio, right? And so it's fun to put out things like this that they can just use their imaginations with. Or maybe it's just time to create your own secret garden getaway. And chances are you've worked hard in the garden and you deserve that. And that is all I have to say. And I'll just wrap up by saying that this is, if you hold up your phone to this little QR code and just, open your camera like you're going to take a photo, but just hold it up, it'll open to a website. And if you just put in your email address, you will get the UC Marin Master Gardener e-newsletter, which is called a leaflet. And we'll send that to you quarterly. So, and again, like I said, I promise we will not pound you over the head with a million emails. So that is where we are. So, if there are any questions or how we want to proceed here, should I turn back on my?
Sure, yeah. Wow, Marie, that was wonderful. Really, really nice presentation. I love the integration of all the pictures and then the videos and everything too. And thank you so much for all the really good and specific plant names of all these different kinds of grasses and native plants and other kinds of foliage and ground covers that people can actually use and bring into the store and look for specific ones, because that's always a difficult when someone has a very like a common name or something that's not so specific to the plant. It's a little bit harder to find them, but when you actually have a good name to go off of, it's really helpful. And then each one had their own like reason why you might want to choose it, which is really, really insightful to me and actually really cool for anyone watching, that they can go back and look at the ones that they really liked. I really like the ones like about some of them are dog resistant, which is a question that we had earlier, which is a really cool one. And some of them are, really easy to maintain and are low growing and use less water. All very, very cool. Mm-hmm. And then one other thing that actually kept with me from the very beginning presentation, just the idea of how much energy is really used. And we always talk about water. Whenever I talk about lawns, it's always the talk about water, which is always really important, but also just the amount of energy that actually really goes into it is interesting. It should be thought about when discussing alternatives. So thank you for bringing that up. We don't have too much time here, but I actually had one or two really good questions that I thought maybe you can kind of speak to and give your insight for. One of them was, when you're recreating a space, and maybe if you're not going straight into full planting or full like grassy lands, someone was wanting to do more of like a rock garden approach. And you had some good pictures about the patios and the rock gardens, but they're wondering, it would be a good method to lay down like a burlap and then just have rocks on top of it as a really easy way to kind of smother and start that process? Or do you feel like there's another step or two that they should look into for that kind of approach?
Well, that's a great question. So the whole benefit of sheet composting is to build the soil, right? And it's hard to know how much would be part of the rock garden and how much would be plants nearby. But if plants are going to be part of the equation, then you still want to help that soil, right? You always want to take care of your soil. So I would still recommend, cardboard, something that's going to break down. When you put cardboard down, all those earthworms, all those good critters, they just love that, right? They want to, so put that down, put a little bit of, in that case, maybe a layer of compost or soil, let it cook, right? And maybe put the rocks on top of that. And again, I don't know what size rocks we're talking about. If there's bigger ones, yeah, you could put it right on top, you're done, right? So it gets trickier when it's like gravel, something like that, because then that's permanently going to be in your soil, right? You got to know this is going to stay like this, because taking it out is, can be a big project. But yeah, I don't know that I would use burlap per se, because I know some burlaps will break down over time, but cardboard is just so easy. It's just so easy. And it's
good. Thank you for that insight on that one. I also have someone who was asking about when you are setting up an area, either for these grassier lands or you're redoing your lawn area, for gopher control. You mentioned it quickly with the planter boxes, but in general, especially areas that are really gopher heavy, do you feel like going with the laying out of the cages, or going for what kind of methods do you feel most people should use or look into?
If you already know you have a gopher problem, 100% use the cages, right? There's just, you have to, or you're just gonna be so bummed, and if you have gophers to get, traps, that's just, traps are what work, yeah. So anyway.
No, that's good. Yeah, it's good to at least just kind of speak briefly to that one, because there are a lot of those that come in and, look at what your options are, but try and do the best you can.
Yeah, and if you're putting in a raised bed, like that one slide, if you're putting in a raised bed, you could just put it all along the bottom, and that should deter them.
Yeah. And then not too many more, but I have one really good one I wanted to bring up from the beginning. So a lot of areas in the city, especially if you're coming to a new location or a new house, or if you maybe haven't done a lot of gardening and you want to get started, a lot of people have dead lawns, or areas that are dead, or however dead it is, it's pretty much gone to a very kind of dry state where it's not really going to be alive easily anymore. And instead of, is there a better method than just doing like the same kind of layering that you're mentioning, or should they approach it a little bit differently if it is just like a relatively dead area? I know you're saying digging it out can disrupt the soil microbes and everything. Is that still a concern?
I would say two things. The first thing is, the sheet composting is an outstanding way to go to help resurrect soil, right? It's an outstanding way to build soil. So I would still just do that. I would avoid digging as much as you can, right? Even though the temptation is there to just turn it and dig it up and so forth. But let's just try and bring those creatures, back to life, so to speak. Let's try and get them going. So compost, a layer of mulch. Mulch is so important. Bare soil is waiting to be degraded. It is being degraded, right? Keep a layer of organic mulch on there over a little compost, and that'll start the process. And then second, when you do plant into that, you can then put some compost or some good stuff into each hole when you plant, and that'll help speed the process along. You can also, actually, add a third one. If you have the opportunity to change the topography just a tiny bit, berm up a little bit, right? You can put really great soil on top, and this can look fabulous, right? Couple of rocks, and you berm it up and put some really nice soil, and then you've got some really sweet soil right there to plant into. It's kind of like a natural container, but it's your whole garden is the container. So
it's a little feature. That's really good. Yeah, you mentioned it earlier too. Wow, really, really nice ideas and good insight on those kinds of questions. We are coming to the very end of our presentation, and I hope everyone really enjoyed it. I had lots of nice comments coming your way, so very good job.
Thank you.
Also, thank you for the link to the Marin kind of system here we have, as well as we will hopefully be sending out a list of all like the plants and the videos that you mentioned earlier in our kind of follow-up email. And then definitely, if you ever want to go back and watch this video again, or if you are watching in the future, you can always scroll back, and on our YouTube page, we have this that's going to be going up, and you can look at all those plants, write down the names, get some more ideas, kind of rethink your new design for your planting area. So it should be all available to you, and definitely come into our stores, talk to us. A lot of these plants we mentioned are ones that I've seen in our store, so we can definitely help get those to your locations. Yeah.
Excellent. And like I said, I'll provide the resource list that will be sent out. So all of these will be listed and you can learn all you want on this. So good.
Very good. Thank you again. This
Thank
was
you.
Marie Narloft. I'm Taylor Cochran, and hope everyone enjoys the rest of their Saturday and looks at their planting areas and can start rethinking them or even get some new ideas going. But
Great.
yeah, thank you again. Enjoy the rest of your day, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, goodbye.